Hello and welcome to another one of my investor videos. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the Money Sponge on Twitter and I'm a junior resources investor, predominantly in the oil and gas and mining sectors. Many of the stocks that I talk about would be deemed high risk due to low liquidity, low market caps and generally being early stage companies. So please don't rely on the information in the videos, please just use them as helpful research where I present the companies and I present the investment case for the companies from my perspective only. Today I'm going to be talking about a new company that I've invested in called BidStack. And this is very different to companies that I've historically invested in, such as junior resource, oil and gas and mining companies. This is in the tech, AdTech space, and it's an early stage technical company. Now, BidStack is a cross-platform in-game native advertising network, which I'll explain in a bit more detail in a minute. It's 14 million market cap and it listed on the AIM market in Q3 2018 at 6 pence per share, raising 3.5 million to add to the approximate 400k that the shell they RTO'd into had. So I would suggest cash would be around about 3.5 million at the minute. Now the company, in my opinion, has first mover advantage, and if you read the prospectus, they cover this off, and it has potentially got blue sky potential because it is an early stage company. Obviously caveated with the fact that it's an early stage company comes more risk. However, I think what I will show you in this video should go towards actually showing the potential of the company and why it does have blue sky potential. They serve live ads into games. Games publishers publish these games, and they essentially make advertising space available to BidStack, who then will sell that on to advertisers. They're building a solid publisher base. They've got 4 live clients at the moment. So this is a live system now. It's not a development system. It's in production. It's live. And the company are serving ads into games, and Football Manager 19 was just released recently, and we've already seen screenshots on Twitter and on Twitch, etc., where these ads are appearing. So they're very much up and running, and you can see they've got Sega as one of their key clients. The company has a strong management team. It's led by CEO James Draper, who has a 20% holding in the company. The Chief Technology Officer, Francesco Petruzzelli, he has a 3% holding. And probably another name to note who recently joined the company to head up the sales team is Karen Tal, who's ex-Apple. She was headhunted by Apple to launch their IAD network across the Europe, Middle East and Asia. And she's been brought on board to expand the sales team. Essentially that they've got the product now, it's developed, it's robust, they've got clients, so now it's about expanding their market footprint and reach and getting in new names, new brands and new publishers to grow the revenue essentially and grow the company. And this is what should be interesting to shareholders. So let's talk a little bit about the market itself then, the games market. So it's a whopping 138 billion market globally, and I've done a bit of research. There's 2 billion gamers worldwide. The 138 billion market is actually represents a 13% growth year on year over 2017, and you can see from one of the graphics I've got there that there's various different growth areas. Mobile, interestingly enough, enjoying one of the biggest increases, and that's I guess because mobiles are getting more powerful, more rich content on them, so the games are more playable, and so it's a solid growth market, which is a good backdrop for investing in a company. BidStack platform is it's platform agnostic, so it can leverage any segments of this market in terms of the ad tech gaming. I think the timing's right for BidStack, and I did a little bit of delving and a bit of research into competitors or previous competitors, which is always a good thing to do. And I got talking to a friend of mine about a company called Massive, which was taken over by Microsoft and that was approximately 10 years ago. And we were just sort of like scratching our heads to think, well, how come? Hang on, Microsoft took over this company. They were attempting and trying to do the same thing as what BidStack are doing. Where did that go? And a few things came out of that. It seemed that there was a bit of a falling out post-acquisition. I'm not sure if it's the Microsoft way of doing things or whatever, but I think some of the developers left and this didn't really develop any legs. And I think more interestingly, one of the things coming from an IT background myself, which is very important, and I think probably would have been a barrier at the time for this being a success, is if you're going to be serving rich content over the internet, whether it be streaming or whether it be graphics, which in this case is adverts, it is graphics, you're going to need decent broadband and you're going to need decent connection speeds. And if you look at the chart I've pulled there, you'll see that 10 years ago we were in a very, very different space. We were only past dial-up modems at that point in time. It just wouldn't have flown in my view. Whereas today, we're experiencing some of the highest connection speeds ever. Bandwidth has greatly improved. Data centers are very powerful now. They've got scalability. Technology has advanced so much that this now, I think the timing is right for this type of business and this business model to work. And BidStack are in the right place at the right time, as far as I'm concerned. So, I think that's a very important aspect to consider, and why I now think that if BidStack have a first mover advantage in this marketplace, this could offer, as I said before, blue sky potential to investors. So, when we look at the market, we have to look at competition as well, and I think BidStack, in terms of competition, are ahead of what I think is quite a small pack, to be honest. If you look in the prospectus, you will see some reference to other competitors, and it's good that they've done that due diligence and they've looked and they've given investors an insight into that. Obviously, you can do your own research on that. But I think what we need to do here is we need to now look at BidStack versus the competition in the marketplace. And I think the key thing to draw away from this slide is how BidStack differs in the marketplace to competitors. And essentially the BidStack offering is market leading. It is dynamic and it can respond to advertisers' needs without needing further games releases. So it's not binary. When a games publisher comes along and says, right, here's ad space in my game, go and fill it please BidStack, BidStack being the middleman, BidStack can then provide to the demand side, which are the advertising agencies, the brands, and most notably programmatic automated platforms that are serving out ads to be placed into certain sectors. BidStack can do that, can do it in a dynamic way, and advertisers, if they want to change their campaigns, real time essentially, they can do that through the BidStack offering, because BidStack is an API and it will serve into that game. Competitors, however, from what I've seen, are further behind and perhaps will be aspiring to the BidStack model, but very much, competitors will have to develop ad work up front for the games publishers and agree placement of those in the games for the for the entirety of the release of that game. And only really those ads can be changed when games publishers release new versions of the games, because the artwork is fixed into the game. So if you take a brand, someone like, for example, Nike, who they've got an advert in Football Manager, for example, and they're advertising their latest trainer, and 3 months later they come along with a new football boot mid-season, they can advertise that boot and they can use that space that they've already allocated and paid for without having to go back to the games publisher and actually ask for that artwork to be put into the next version, which could be a year later, well after those football boots have been released anyway. So this is very powerful, and this is where I think that BidStack are ahead of the competition in the marketplace, and it's worth reflecting on that. So the BidStack product itself then, so what does it do? I've touched on that to a certain extent, but let's just go over it again in high level. It's in-game native advertising. Okay, this is very powerful. There are no limits to where adverts can be placed. There's lots of games, different genres. Battlefield 3, as you can see on the slide there. Very graphics-rich game. It's got neons and advertising boards that gamers will walk past. There'll be times where they're walking past those, and those will hit them in the face, and that'll be the scenery around them. They'll look at that and they'll see the adverts. Okay, even if it's subconsciously, they're going to see the adverts. So this is very powerful for advertisers, and they can change placement, change the adverts, according to the campaigns they want to run. And of course, there are lots of genres of games, so they can reach all different demographics and target audiences. BidStack have 4 publishers at the moment signed up with exclusive contracts, and this is a great platform to start from. And it's worth saying again that they are live with these customers. So this isn't something, it's not vaporware or something, an MOU that's going to happen. These are live contracts running now. As I said before, the platform connects the advertising buy side to the publisher sell side. So publisher has room for adverts in their game. The advertisers want to advertise in those games. In fact, sometimes the advertisers may even not know what game it's going to go into. They might just say, I'm going to allocate £1 million to have my Nike trainers in the most appropriate target place. And advertising agencies may do that on behalf of the brand, which is fine. And the same with sort of programmatic, DSPs. An advertising brand can go to those and they can just say, here's just 500,000 for a campaign across these target platforms, and they just do it, and that's it. So it's a unique, dynamic ad offering, I think, as we discussed before, ahead of the competition. It's proven live in technology. It's a programmatic interface, and it allows games developers, whether they're new games or very much well-known existing games, to create revenue streams for themselves by integrating the adverts into their games. And BidStack also offer a creative offering as well. So they can, on behalf of publishers and brands, produce the artwork, and that's just an additional revenue stream they have. So I think if we talk now about the roadmap for the company then, so we've looked at the market, we understand a bit about the company and what they do. Where do we go from here? What can investors expect to grow their investment, and why would I be invested? Well, okay, so they're going to be signing up new games publishers. In the prospectus they say they're in a number of advanced talks with additional games publishers, some of which have got hundreds of millions of downloads and sales. So these are pretty big games and a pretty broad reach in terms of user base. They'll be signing up new brands and agencies and DSPs as well. So this is very much the buy side, and this is where their bread and butter and their revenues are going to come from. So from that perspective, they're going to want to bring more on board. But it's interesting to note the DSPs and the programmatic side itself will be can serve many adverts into these games. I think they're going to be focused on expanding exclusivity with publishers as well. So as an example there, BidStack currently have 6 of 12 billboards in Football Manager 2019 that they've got exclusive rights to. So the other 6 will probably be the sort of the binary, as I said, created artwork created for when the game was released. BidStack are filling 6 of those now with dynamic ads, which can change, and they plan to move to 11 of those 12 billboards in the next year's release. So as they expand their footprint in these games and their exclusivity, so do they create a barrier to entry for any competitors that come along. And again, this is why we go back to first mover advantage, and this is why this is something that could grow exponentially very fast, especially as they secure new deals. So we can expect new games publishers and new clients. And I think the last thing to point out there is as well that they'll be doing new developments. So I had a conference call with the company a little while ago, and they're looking to recruit more developers, not to keep the lights on for what they've got already, but to develop new features, and I should imagine just develop new capabilities around this whole offering to make it even more seamless and easy for clients to use. So very, very interesting, especially coming myself from an IT background. You know, you develop a product, and a product can be really good, but how you can monetize that product going forward by adding additional features, you know, there's lots of opportunities there. Okay, so probably would like to wrap up really with the investment case here, and there's quite a few things to talk through, but I'll do this as quick as I can. So the investment case, why invest? Well, you know, there's always a lot of things that I look at when I look at the investment case, and management is one that I do always put a focus on. Now, I have spoken to the team before, and I'm impressed with what I've heard. I was impressed with certain discussions I had around things like scalability of the platform. The CTO had some solid answers in that respect. So, founding experienced management team, you know, that they're the guys that have come from the ground upwards, and the shareholder aligned. They have stakes in the company, which is good. First mover advantage, offering blue sky potential to investors. So, you know, let's caveat that by this is an early stage technology company, but the opportunity here is limitless. You know, it's not looking at an oil and gas prospect and saying, here's an NPV value here, here's the costs, that's the locked in, if you like, NAV of the assets. So I can just work out a price per share for that. This could grow exponentially. It could grow sideways, upwards. There's lots of opportunity here, but you know, they need to make the sales. They need to you know, penetrate the market, but they're in a good place to do that. There's limited competition, and that's why they're in a good place to do that. There is limited competition from what I can see. I'm sure our competitors will follow. But you know, they seem to have inferior offerings at the moment, and I don't think I've seen any that offer any of this sort of the programmatic type of ad serving that BidStack can support. Proven technology, it's live today with 4 games publishers. You know, we're not just hoping that they're going to be a success here. They are a success. Now it's about building out the business and expanding the business. They're in advanced discussions with new games publishers to secure further exclusive contracts. They're in a growth market, a market that's growing 13% year on year across the gaming devices. You know, the uptake of advertising in these games would be expected to increase, and you know, perhaps that means that other market outlets for advertising will shrink, such as browser-based advertising, where there's a lot of ad blocking now. You don't get ad blocking in BidStack game. You know, in the games, because they're part of the native, you know, surroundings in the game. So you wouldn't block them. There'd be no need to block them. Revenue generating, you know, something that's overlooked sometimes, but it's a revenue generating company, and the company expect to become self-sufficient from the initial raise with revenues, and you know, it's a high margin business, and the region, you know, the margin is expected to be in the region of around about 40%. So there was a Peterhouse broker note out, and it suggests that there's going to be, you know, around about 4 times revenue growth from 2019 to 2020. Now that's a very large revenue growth, and if they can maintain that going forwards, then you're talking about significant revenue potential over the next, you know, 5 to 10 years. However, you know, on a 20 million revenue with 4% margin, you're looking at around about 8 million profit. If you had a PE ratio of around 10, that would be an 80 million market cap. The market cap currently today sits at around about 11 million if you take off cash. But you know, it's worth noting also, and I was talking to someone about this, that many technical games, you know, companies in the sort of tech sectors and that can trade on, you know, PEs in excess of 25 times earnings. So, you know, if you get the right interest and speculators come in, then, you know, the market cap could move faster up the curve than we would expect. And I think the directors of the company are very excited about the potential growth prospects here, and probably have been, I think, from, you know, conversations I've had, chomping at the bit, seeing where the vision is and seeing where this company could go, but being slightly constrained by having to, you know, get silly things like get new offices and, you know, get through the first release of their first big name Sega Football Manager, and do all of those things, plus build their sales team, go out and talk to new customers. As I said, there's 8 agreements at advanced stage being discussed at the moment. All of these things, it's a lot of work. The company are very busy, and I like what I've heard. So I think, just to wrap up on that, you've got to consider this company could be a potential takeover target, given that it's advanced in its field, and we know that companies such as Google and the big names, if they like something and they see and understand the business model, and they think they can somehow get an early stage monopoly on it, they'll go for it as well. So you've got to consider that that's a possibility. So that's my summary of BidStack. I hope you liked it. For me, it's an investment that I've taken an initial position in, and I will be looking to increase that position, and I will be watching the news flow very carefully, because if I see contracts landing, which I think is going to happen, and what I'm expecting, then I'll be prepared to add incrementally to this investment. So I've got a nice risk position at the moment, and I'm planning to build on that. Yes, I think that covers it, and by all means, send me any feedback that you have or thoughts you have on it. Thank you.